60% of USAID's programming is life-saving humanitarian assistance or global health programming to prevent critical diseases and to help heal and treat people. 60%. And yet these again, falsehoods about projects that are allegedly going on here or there have come in such a short time to define USAID's reputation, including with Republican supporters of USAID who have stood with the agency over decades, who have seen these programs in the field, who have offered great insight and wisdom about how we can strengthen these programs and make them more cost effective. So it's just really important that the misinformation be put to one side. I know this is easier said than done, and that people remember what USAID is offering the American people and what it has done on behalf of the American people for 6 decades.
We have some breaking news that came in over the break. A federal judge has just paused the USAID administrative leave. After hearing arguments in Washington, Judge Carl Nichols says he will grant the plaintiff's request for a temporary restraining order or pause of the planned administrative leave for thousands of USAID employees. Judge Nichols saying this, quote, "I will be entering tonight, sometime between now and midnight, a limited, very limited, temporary restraining order that will be directed at the placement of the 2,200 or 2,700 employees on administrative leave and then the accelerated removal of people from their countries. The administrative leave for 2,200 USAID employees was scheduled to begin tonight at 11:59 p.m. What does this mean?
Well, Judge Nichols is an extremely thoughtful judge, so that he's landed on this is a sign that, what this administration is trying to do is probably well outside the legal and constitutional boundaries. In the last segment, Andrew used an important word, which was destruction, which seems to be the intention here. But I think it's destruction that's much broader than USAID. Under our constitutional law, under statutory law, the president is supposed to administer the programs that are appropriated by Congress. Mm-hmm. Well, I think this administration would like to change that. So I think what they expect to happen is this TRO just got granted. Maybe it becomes a preliminary injunction, and they're going to appeal that as quickly as possible and try to get it in front of a favorable Supreme Court, where they hope they can really rewrite the playbook in terms of presidential powers.
What precedent would they argue, though, for stripping away congressional? He was impeached for this, for stripping away congressionally approved funds.
Yeah, there's not a lot of precedent, but there has been a change in personnel on the Supreme Court.
That's a good way to put it. Karun, what do you understand this to mean for the workforce of USAID?
Well, it extends this period of limbo, honestly, would be my gut reaction to it. Certainly, it is a stay. It's a reprieve from the imminence that they were facing of, having to put on administrative leave and the timeline of having to get out of country if they wanted the government to help fund their relocation costs. But it's not clear yet what the end game is, right? I mean, we may be in this position for a couple more weeks, a couple more months. I don't know how long it would take this type of case to move through the courts, but it doesn't solve the final question of, what happens to this agency? And remember, if the agency goes away, the agency funds a whole lot of projects, an entire aid sector, basically, that relies on this money, these grants, these awards. There's radiating effects as well, because the United States has been pulling back contributions to various international agencies that do similar work. So again, as far as the workforce is concerned, the fears are stayed for a while, but I think they're probably still there, given that people don't know what the end game of this is and what they can do thereafter, given that it's not just one agency of government. It's like a whole sector that could be going away if these orders are allowed to continue at some point down the road.
Andrew.
So I just want to make sure people understand sort of the legal frame. There's tons of important things to say about the consequences, like why should one care about USAID? I'm not the person really for that. In terms of legally what's going on is all sorts of problems when you act so precipitously. One, when you have just contractors, if you just say, oh, wait, by the way, come back, you're not getting any more money. Well, they have contracts. So you may.
Like the farmers that provide the wheat or the peanuts.
Exactly. So you have Americans who are providing the material. And then you also have vendors. Not everyone who works at USAID is an employee. Some of those people are under contract. So all of this could be a huge amount of waste because you've breached those contracts. That's one bucket of problems. The second bucket is the same thing we've been talking about in terms of the Department of Justice and the FBI, which is people have rights. Yes, you can fire people for cause, you can downsize. There are all things you can do, but the reason it takes a while is because people have rights, and if you just say you're gone, it reminds me of the Muslim ban. If you do it precipitously, you end up with the same incompetence that we saw in Trump 1.0. This is not better. The reason you're seeing all of these TROs is because the judges are saying, wait a second, there are hoops you have to jump through. You, Nicole, you're entitled to be heard before this happens. And so that's like a second bucket before you do this. And then the third is Congress, which is like Congress has the power of the purse. You can't just take that funding and say, you know what? I'd like to spend it on something else. Well, you know whose choice that is? That's Congress's choice. They may not be speaking up, but that is illegal to do that. So you have these three buckets of legal issues where you really have the sense that this administration is, we don't care, what are you going to do about it? And that is why you are seeing for the past week court after court after court. And these are judges, by the way, these judges are not the sort of like, oh, these are Obama judges or Biden judges. You are seeing this across the board because those are judges who believe in and have taken an oath to the rule of law. And that's why you're seeing these, where it ultimately leads, we'll see it. Much of this will end up in the Supreme Court. But I really want to make sure people understand that there are rights here that courts are saying have been violated. And don't think that even though you heard about Project 2025 and that these people are going to be so much better in terms of implementation, the reason you're seeing all of this happening in these TROs is the same incompetence.